We are from Funeral Rites Group, and today we would like to reveal you some inside story that you might never notice before. We will cover all 5 sections in these presentations. If you are ready, let's begin. The relationship between life and death had been close to each other, and sooner or later, everyone would somehow face death. Even though we are so close with the circle of life, people interpret death as negative symbol, such as loss, separations, and sadness. Since dying is unexplainable to word, the variety of ceremony are performed based on the cultures of the regions and explanations of how people view the world. Surely, the funeral rites didn't occur for the deceased, but rather it was held for teaching the alive relative to prioritize the present. It is estimated to reduce sadness of a live relative, to produce opportunity to express thought and feeling about the death of someone loved, and to offer time for a living member to move forward. Unquestionably, immortality has been the fundamental that drives people to believe in the supernatural and afterlife world. Since the Greek, that has been increased philosophical history through the Egyptian era of mummifying. Even though today that life expectancy has almost doubled than before, people still cannot escape that. So, we know that everyone has to die someday. Then what next? Does the world after that really exist or just an imagination? Let me tell you the story. In the past, human being has a highly relative relationship with nature while they have little knowledge about it. Seeing the event that happen naturally caused fear and insecurity inside. So they believe that there should be a power or some animism mystery, such as God inspired behind those phenomena. It is a reason why we need communality to share experience and feeling for something that we cannot explain for our own protection. Starting with authenticity, different society contain diverse beliefs. The definitions of funeral rites as well as the destination of death can be interpreted differently in different cultures. Modern Europe believes that all humans are born once and die once, and that is the essential of life. Once a person dies, the spirit will go on to the hand of God, and there is no return to the living world. So we practice funerals to send the spirit to the hand of God, whereas the ancient European attitude toward the dead was influenced by their belief in immortality. They believe that death is just a temporary interruption of life. To continue with the life after that when returned, they were mummified waiting for the soul to return to the same body. So their belief in rebirth and after that become the driving force behind their funeral practice. According to African belief system, they believe that life doesn't end with death, but it still continue in another realm. And becoming an ancestor after that is the desirable goal of every individual. Contrastly, Southeast Asia believe that we are in the circle of rebirth and death. When someone dies, the spirit will transform to another form and rebirth in the same world. Since the majority of Southeast Asia believe in Buddhism, Buddha believed in karma or intentional action. As a result, people are rebirthed into another form depending on their action. So, living people are doing funeral ceremony to deliver the deceased to a better place. Therefore, the authenticity of the funeral rites in Southeast Asia is the idea that human soul and body are detached and reborn in the same world, while the body is just a carnival in which there is no need to stabilize. To prove our assumption, I will start with the idea of human soul and body being detached in Southeast Asia. There is no valid evidence record that when the idea of human soul and body being detached first exists in Southeast Asia. However, archaeologists has investigated and found that Ban Chiang, Thailand exists around 3,500 years ago. That was before the enlightenment of Buddha and before Hinduism first expanded in Southeast Asia. There are several graves found in this area in which grave goods like pottery, bone tool, Spare points were put there with the barrier in order to reward to death. So we can conclude that they believe in life after death and so. And this not only in human but also animal like dog. Another second oldest civilization in Southeast Asia, which is not so far away from Banchiang, is Donsan, which is now called Vietnam. Skull and bone were found in huge jars instead of coffin with decoration stuff in order to send the dead people to the next life peacefully. Moreover, Donson has produced a music instrument which is brass drum. The main functions of these instruments is to assemble soul of ancestor to come to the funeral. And they also believe that these instruments can ask spirits to bring the rain for them. Lastly, Sankai Batu, a civilization on islands. This ancient existence was around 535 BC and located in Malaysia. Archaeologists found several ancient ships and iron tool barrier at the bottom of the lake around the investigation area. Unfortunately, this is no signs of grave and funeral in this civilization yet. Maybe because the village did not embed the dead body into the ground. Somehow, the monument that was made by the civilizations can best explain that they believe in soul and supernatural power. The evidence show that the functions of the monuments is to worship the mountain spirit.
So after we have an idea of the main shared belief about life after death that Southeast Asian countries have in common, let's have a look at the diversity of funeral rites based on the religions introduced to Southeast Asia. So the first religion we are going to talk about is Hinduism. The birthplace of Hinduism is at the Indus River Valley, which runs through northwest India to Pakistan. In Hinduism, they believe that when someone dies, the soul is reborn as a different form. Traditionally, they believe that there is no purpose to keep or preserve a physical body, so they cremate it. Initially, cremations for Hindus would be nearby on the Konka River in India, and the family and friends would carry the casket to crematorium site with the belief that when Konka divine waters clean a lifetime of sins by a drop of water for those who immerse themselves in the river. And that's the reason why Hindus' funerals take place near the river. And once Hinduism came to Southeast Asia in the first century, Cambodia was firstly influenced by Hinduism at the beginning of the Kingdom of Funan. It came after a belief of supernatural and mystical power, and it came to influence and power in Cambodia to worship the Hindu gods. Moreover, there are also Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam that Hinduism came to spread and establish the religion. And these days, Hinduism is more likely to adjust some conventional and traditional funeral practices. For example, the dead bodies was cremated locally, and most funeral directors can accommodate the traditions and ritual of Hindu cremation. Therefore, they don't have to cremate the body near the Konka River like in the historical pattern. So, and some countries in Southeast Asia like Thailand and Cambodia, despite Hinduism slightly declined in many parts of Southeast Asia since 13th centuries, where Buddhism was playing a big role, especially in these two countries. Hindu rituals still retain the role in some countries, such as the ceremony of coronation in Thailand, but not much with the funeral rites. It doesn't have to be original as the beginning of Hinduism. There are changes and combinations that are more appropriate for the locals. So the next religion is Islam. The Islam traditional belief is in the method of destruction is that humans were made by the soil of God. So when they pass away, they should be returned into soil as well. Then God will bring and guide the spirit to another body in another world. The Islam religion originated in Saudi Arabia and it initially came to Indonesia in pre-capitalist era, around 7th century, through maritime Silk Road trade. In the first place, Indonesians believe in keeping the dead and treating the body like he or she is still living for keeping in touch between people who live and die. Moreover, Indonesians believe that the spirit will be a protector for their whole family and their land. After Islam arrived, the funeral changed to be like the original of this religion, which the dead is buried as soon as possible. During the colonization period, there was a great change of belief. Since Southeast Asian people normally believe in the supernatural, Islam is easy to match with the culture of Southeast Asian people. Then, in this modern world, Islamics in Southeast Asia mix their traditional culture with their derived beliefs. Therefore, they keep the dead until they were ready to bury back to the hand of God. And the third religion is Buddhism. Buddhism originated in India around 2500 years ago. Basically, they believe in reincarnation, where human spirit still continues living to seek a new life and be reborn in any form based on karma in their past life. Interestingly, the overlap of pre-Buddhist and indigenous Southeast Asian concepts of soul and spirits doesn't contradict each other, but opens more space of interpretation about death, body, and soul. In the early Buddhism era, funeral rites in India were very simple since the body was seen as a lifeless lot that should not be mourned. The dead body, therefore, would be burned within 1 to 2 days. Then, during the first and third centuries, it spread to Southeast Asia from trade with India and gradually blend with the local spiritual beliefs. And then around 10th and 15th centuries, Chinese culture had a huge influence on Southeast Asia. But the way they manage the body doesn't change that much. For example, Thai people still do cremation instead of burial as Chinese funeral do. Some funerals in Thailand have Chinese ceremonies like inviting Chinese monks to pray alternately with Thai monks, with the body being kept for 1 to 7 days or sometimes more than 7 days up to 100 days, and then cremated. And in the colonial period, the capitalist economy caused funeral ceremonies to be more expensive and become a service business with the belief that the more funerals are big, the more the spirits will be good. But for the poor, some procedures are taken off to make it affordable. And after that, when democratization and modernization came, there was no exact rule of Buddhist funerals. People are less strict and focus more on a core objective and simplicity and personal preference. The last one is Christianity. It is the largest religion in the world, which is based on the teaching of Jesus Christ and focuses on the relationship with God. It originated in Jerusalem in the Roman province in Judea. Generally, the Christian faith prefer burials to cremations. This is because it interferes with their beliefs on the resurrection and the afterlife. It is believed that the human body is only a temporary material arising from the soil by the hand of God. Once a person dies, they will return to the ground. As for spite, it follows the path of the mind to the land of God, whether hell or heaven. So Christianity first came to mainland Southeast Asia through the French in Vietnam in the 1300s. However, in this modern day, the Philippines became the dominant Christian nation in Southeast Asia. Islam spread into Philippines first. However, by the time that Spanish arrived at Philippines in the 16th century, they had started the process of Christianization into Philippines culture and way of life. In the colonization era, Spain forced local Filipino to change their religion from Islam to Christianity by trading with their land since Spain conquered all the land of the Philippines. And starting with the local belief of Philippines, the majority of local Filipino respect in Islam's belief, so they wholeheartedly believe in supernatural power and goddesses. While Roman Catholic believes that all humans are born once and die once, in which the spirit will travel into God's realm, and this is the end of life on earth. To explain their perception and value of death were changed since Christianity intervened into their way of life. Funeral rites are not just an explanation phenomenon, but it is important to properly send the deceased to the hand of God. And here is the table comparing the funeral practices and belief behind them in each religion in Southeast Asia. So let's begin with Buddhism. In Buddhism, cremation is a commonly used method of funeral rites rather than other methods. To explain for the soul, after people die, the body is nothing. It therefore would be burned into ashes to free the soul from the past life to be reborn in another life. And that's why they normally keep the body just for 1 to 2 days. Interestingly, as we mostly heard that a funeral rite is not held for the dead, but for the living ones. For example, though Thai people adopt some Chinese procedures like burning valuable things, they still do cremation instead of burial that is normally done in Chinese funerals, since it can comfort the living people. To explain, if the body is buried, the people who are living would still believe and concerned that the soul is still in the body, not go for rebirth. And in modern Buddhism, the funeral ceremony is held longer, like 1 to 7 days, or sometimes more than 7 days, up to 100 days. Because, firstly, a traditional belief about an auspicious and inauspicious day that is put in context. Secondly, they also insert more procedures comforting the living ones to ensure that the spirit will receive all good in the next life and to keep them busy to forget sadness. Next, in Hinduism, Hindus believe that cremation in funerals is to move on and pass over the spirit and the soul of death, which is the quickest way to pass them to the new life in the next chapter. And it's obviously effective for the family to move on quickly as well. Similarly to the duration of Hindu funeral rites, the duration is within 1 day to 2 days, which is also reasonable according to the way Hindus cremate the body, as it is the quickest way to move on spirit and also the living ones. Next, as Muslims believe that humans were made by the soil of God, the funeral rites is also related to soil. The dead are buried as soon as possible before the corpse start to smell. So the significant purpose of Muslim funeral rites is that they want the family to quickly move on from sadness. For the dead, in physical form is to prevent crops from decomposing and smell. And in terms of soul is to deliver the soul to the hand of God and quickly return the dead to God. And as we said earlier, that God will bring and guide the spirit to another body in another world. The last column is Christianity. Its funeral service usually occurs from about 2 to 3 days after death, up to a week after the person passed away. Funerals may take place on any day of the week, though they generally are not held on Sundays in Catholicism. During the funeral rites, it only takes about half an hour, and graveside services are often even briefer at 20 minutes. It is because Christian funerals are held for friends and family to grieve for the people who died and give thanks for their life. And the pastor will be the intermediary person who lets the deceased leave the coffin and return to God. It often starts with some type of music such as organ, vocal, or instrumentals. Music is also often played after the blessing and as the coffin is carried outside for burial. It may also be played after the burial is over and the priest gives the final blessing.
In conclusion, funeral rites are not performed for the deceased, but rather it was held for teaching a life relative to prioritize the present. It is crystal clear that the authenticity of the funeral rites in Southeast Asia is the idea of human soul and body are detached and reborn in the same world, whereas the body is just a carnival in which there is no need to stabilize. Even though people in Southeast Asia believe in detachment of soul and body, funeral rites in Southeast Asia are diverse in terms of processes. Undeniably, different countries carry different spirits since the beginning. When they were influenced by other religions, it's become a great mixture of culture. The destinations of the afterlife as well as the funeral ceremony were converted because of the changing of the religion. Besides, the colonizations, economic systems, and politics are the minor drive that caused the diversity of funeral rites. Although the formula, the order and steps, or even the durations of the arrangement will change, at the end, the core concepts and authenticity still remain unchanged. Thank you.